Hi, Swish. Really, really, really nice to have you here. And I had to write everything down because there's just so much about you that it's impossible for everyone to know. But you're going to tell us because your story looks, sounds, and is amazing. So you're the CEO at Surf. You're an investor in so many different companies, three-time TEDx speaker, and LinkedIn top voice in entrepreneurship in between a million other things that you do. And I'm just quoting right here your LinkedIn headline. So not even going very deep into what you actually do. And on top of that, you have also been a consultant, work for the UN, and you are a podcast host. I'm just gonna pass the ball and let you tell me a bit of your story.
Sure. No, thank you for having me. Appreciate the kind intro. I grew up in a wonderful place called Singapore, a small kind of city country, if you will, really close to Malaysia and the Philippines. And in Singapore, it was really neat because there's an entire system of academic tracking there. There's a very much of an accelerated educational program there. So I actually studied in Singapore until primary two, grade two, but that's kind of the equivalent of like grade five here in Canada or the US. And so when I moved to Calgary, Alberta, when I was about 8 years old, it was really neat because it gave me a lot of time to go and do other things because school just came really easy to me. So kind of grade three, grade four, grade five, I always felt like I was like a year ahead or, a year or two ahead when it came to math or science. And that obviously allowed me to do things like dance, debate later on in junior high and high school. I did that obviously on a national level in high school, as well as go ahead and play basketball, volleyball, cricket, basically just do as many things, karate, do as many things as I could to kind of figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. In high school, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, so I really went all in on debate. Kind of quit most of my other sports, and attended two world competitions. Went ahead and kind of traveled the world for debate, and decided to go to University of Toronto. That's actually where my brother also went to undergrad, and he did his law school out of the University of Toronto as well. And 2 years into the University of Toronto, I kind of realized, don't think this is going to be the right fit for me. I don't think the law is as much about just going to court and speaking and kicking ass as it is about reading and writing briefs. And especially in your early kind of period as a lawyer, you really have to be like an amazing writer, because you're mainly writing like 7-8 hours a day. And so I didn't feel like I wanted to do that. However, I also did have some entrepreneurial experience in university, starting a few things. Even when I was in junior high, I joined a program called Junior Achievement. So I thought, what if I took the year off and decided to put myself out there, try to do as much as I could, and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And so after my second year, I took a job at a VC called JB Fitzgerald in New York. 4 months into that job, I quit because I had this incredible opportunity to work with my roommate in New York on a business called Dunk. So he had created this massive Instagram account for basketball fans, about 2.3 million followers on Instagram. I was able to work directly with him, and we grew that channel from 2.3 million followers from one account to about 11 million followers across all our accounts, working with Warner Music and Gatorade and 2K and Q4 Sports and Curve Fragrances to promote their content on our channels. That actually gave me the idea for TrueFan, which is now Surf, about 3.5 years ago. Because the initial idea for Surf was just this very simple platform that could show any brand or influencer their top fans. That's what I wish we actually had, by the way, back when we were running Dunk. Because if we were releasing merchandise or if we were putting out a podcast, it would be far easier to go and activate those 150 top fans than having to just market on paid ads and hope that someone sees it that really liked us in the first place. And so it's been a wild journey, 3.5 years. We've gone and iterated on our strategy. We've evolved as a business. We've grown from pretty much nothing to now about 42 people, raised about 4 million USD in funding, acquired two companies. And we're really excited now about what we're doing at Surf in terms of helping brands engage and understand consumers on the internet while compensating those very consumers for their data. So trying to essentially source data from people ethically by compensating them, giving them transparency over what they're sharing.
Right now, looking at your story, like I'm happy that you had the courage to leave law school and actually pursue what you wanted to pursue, even though you didn't know at the time. So you just followed your dreams and was like, okay, I hope there's something out there. Was
Yep.
it easy for you to make that step and just drop out of university?
It's not easy. I mean, I come from an immigrant background as well, so parents
Mhm.
definitely didn't want me to drop out. My brother was very supportive in the sense of he thought, why don't we just take a year off, see how it is, and if he's doing well, then that's great. He doesn't need to go back to school then.
Yeah.
College will always kind of be a backup in terms of if the business doesn't work out 2 years down the road, he can just sign back up for college. And I didn't have an
Mhm.
ego with me, so like I knew that even if like things didn't work out and I ended up being 1-year-old star failure, I
Yeah.
could just go back to school and I'd be perfectly fine with that. But yeah, it was tough. But eventually, convincing mom was something that I think was the hardest thing to do. And then once kind of she came on board and was very supportive, it was a
Mhm.
pretty seamless transition from there. Again, I don't even like. I actually still feel sometimes that I'm in kind of my college years because I just like never finished, which is
Mhm.
funny. But like even now looking back, like I started college 6 years ago, and that's kind of crazy to even think about. And I dropped out of college about 4 years ago, so that's also something that like I feel
Mhm.
like it was just yesterday, but it happened kind of four years ago.
Do you feel like that makes you more motivated to put in the work that is necessary? Or does that also give you some sort of imposter syndrome? Like, how do I learn now? Because everyone just seems to have a college degree, master's degree, etc., etc.
I don't get imposter syndrome necessarily by educational like certificates or degrees or
Hmm.
anything. I don't. I think I've met some really smart people who just have never even gone to college in the first place, let alone graduated with a degree. I definitely feel imposter
Yeah.
syndrome though, but I feel it more like around just intellect. Like, do people have that like raw knowledge on a topic that I wish I had? I think the best example is like three
Mhm.
years ago when crypto was becoming, more and more mainstream, more popular. People were talking a lot more about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I definitely felt
Yeah.
imposter syndrome there where, people looked at me and they were like, well, you're in tech, you should know this. And I'm like, I don't. Like, I don't know what's happening. And so that's where, like, I looked around, finding a community on Twitter or Clubhouse or talking to people. There was definitely
Mhm.
imposter syndrome because there were people like me who were entrepreneurs that were building tech companies that knew so much about crypto, and I didn't. But again, I didn't know if they had a master's degree or an undergrad or anything. I didn't really care that much to ask or to look into that, because again, I don't necessarily think that qualifications like that necessarily mean that you're going to end up being
Yeah.
smart, knowledgeable, wise about a particular topic.
And I think sometimes
Mhm.
it actually does the opposite for you because you just take it as like a baseline that you're gonna learn wherever you need from school, and
Yeah,
then that's all you learn, and then there's nothing else. So then when you finish school, where else is it? And there's so many
exactly.
different ways to learn, especially now with the online world and everything. That's
Definitely.
go.
And I'm more of a person that is experiential in the sense of like I just learn
Mhm.
best when I do something, which is why like I always joke with my friends as well. I feel like the last 4 years of building surf, it's given me like a mini MBA because like I've legitimately had to go from like not knowing how to create a budget sheet to not knowing how to hire people to not knowing how to fire them to contracts to building
Mhm.
product, managing a team, working remotely, going through a pandemic. Like all of these things I had to do kind of like at the helm of a company. And that has
Yeah.
just been kind of the best way to learn because if I didn't learn, the company wouldn't work out. So it's kind of forcing me to learn quicker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, like the one thing that just makes you get out of bed every day and keep on going?
Well, twofold now. I think one, the team. The team is obviously, like I mentioned, over 40 now, and they're incredible. Very humble, smart people. A lot
Mhm.
of people who have families now as well. And so, just showing up for them in the same way they show up for me or the company is obviously something I keep in the back of my mind. Like this is not just now me and three other people doing this as like a fun project. This is like a legitimate business. People's lives are
Yeah.
attached to it. People are choosing to be here and kind of spend part of their life at surf. So me kind of showing up and hopefully making
Yeah.
it the best experience for them is definitely one thing in my mind. And I think the second is generally the problem as well. Like the problem that we're solving, you know, yeah, data isn't maybe the most sexy topic, but like it is very important, in the sense of for kind of the last 10, 15 years. I mean, these
Mhm.
companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook, they have profited and candidly exploited us for information that we, in my opinion, should have been given the choice on whether we wanted to share it. And more importantly, we should
Yeah.
have been compensated from the beginning. Like it's crazy, Facebook knows more about a lot of people than they do about themselves. And that's because they're tracking every move you make, every video you watch, every interaction that you have on the feed. And that's something again where I'm like, if they want that information, that's great. Brands should be able to target people based on their interests. That is not something I'm against. But what I am
Yeah.
against is taking people's data without giving them transparency, privacy, or compensation for it. And that's where I think Surf comes in and hopefully is going to set like a new standard for what privacy should be.
I'm sorry to, I'm a bit biased as well, but like, but data is not sexy. I think it's the sexiest thing ever because
Yeah,
nowadays,
lovely.
if you have data, you have
Mhm.
everything. Where else do you need? That's why companies are paying, right?
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's a very
So,
profitable business. It just like
yeah.
again, I don't think most people on the street are thinking about data every day. I hope they are eventually. I hope people are very cognizant and aware of the data they're sharing. Like there's a documentary called The Social Dilemma that came out 2 years ago, and I think that woke a lot of people up to be like, "Whoa, these companies know so much about me." But again, I don't think it's something people think about every single day. Is like, what data am I sharing? People just go on to Google and they search up whatever they need to, turn their phone off, and they're like, I'm done. But there is something there, there is valuable information there. There is something that can be monetized there that I hope people think a little bit more about.
I also think like people don't think they can have an individual impact on those topics,
Hmm.
and that's why they
Hmm.
just remain passive,
Correct.
even though it
Correct.
can be a general concern. It's like, oh, veganism. Why am I going to go vegan if by me not eating meat, I'm not going to solve wherever climate change is happening?
Correct.
So
That's a
people
great way to put
just
it.
don't do anything. What advice would you give someone that wants to be an entrepreneur and pursue their own thing? What would you tell them? So a kid comes to you, he's
Um,
like 18, let's say, and he tells you, "Hey, Fish, I want to be an entrepreneur. I just want
mhm.
to build my own thing. I don't want to go into the corporate ladder, and I just want to build. What should I do?"
Well, I think two things. One is, don't overcomplicate your initial idea. I feel like a lot
Mhm.
of like early entrepreneurs, they come up with an idea, but they try to refine it, make it as perfect as possible. They don't launch anything until they feel like, okay, the idea is perfect. And
Mhm.
the candid truth is that there is no such thing as a perfect idea early on. Even with Surf, which obviously we were called TrueFan before, when we started TrueFan 3.5 years ago, I thought we had the perfect idea. I was like, oh yeah, this platform is going to be a place where brands and influencers find their top fans. Now, when I tell you
Mhm.
what Surf does, it's not it's not like it's totally different, but it is an evolution of the initial idea. It's a much bigger vision that I didn't have four
Yeah.
years ago. And the only way I got to that vision is through building something, putting it out there, getting customer feedback, hiring people that were much smarter than me, looking at where the market was going and responding to all three. And that's how essentially we got to this much bigger vision of, okay, wait, it's not just about helping brands find their top fans. It's about helping them understand user behavior, but also compensating people for the data they're sharing every single day. That second layer was something that only came about because of me just putting something out there and saying it might not be a perfect idea, but let's just see where it goes.
Yeah.
So that's number one is try as much as possible with your initial idea, plan, obviously do some research. I'm not saying don't do that, but
Yeah.
once you get past like 1 or 2 weeks, really think about, okay, how do I operationalize this idea if I want to do it? Create a simple MVP, go on Envision and create a non-functional wireframe so people can see what the app will look like. Go door knocking, go on a virtual talks and ask people, would you buy this service? Would you buy this product? Get tangible customer feedback that can ideally guide you to hopefully then go and raise money or potentially even put a little bit of your own money in to create early version one of the product and sell it. So that's
Mhm.
number one. And then number two, I think is just candidly take care of your mental health. This is something I didn't generally do a good job of, especially in the first 2, 3 years of the business. Is
Yeah.
I was going like 140 miles per hour. I didn't really care that much about what I was eating every day. I wasn't sleeping very well. I would candidly also there were days where like I wasn't working out or exercising, and all of those things eventually will catch up to you. And it's not like it'll catch up to you even when you're 30, 35. I mean, it will definitely then, but like it'll catch up with you even on days when things are going bad. If you're not eating well, if you're feeling like crap internally, and if you're not
Yeah.
sleeping well, all of those things will only make you as a decision maker less good at your job. So just make sure that from day one you're kind of putting boundaries over your time, right? You're blocking off specific kind of times in your calendar to go and
Mhm.
de-stress, go for a walk, work out, eat. Those are going to be very important to stick to, especially as your company scales.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think it's so important, especially coming from someone whose society rewards by hustling. If you don't have boundaries, then you just burn out, and then it's not sustainable in the long term. And
Yeah.
so,
Or
yeah.
yeah, and early on it's necessary to put in long hours. I would argue though that like later on, if you're putting in 80-hour weeks, like I don't know what like if you have already a team of like 20, 30, 40 people, if you're like, at a decent scale, you really shouldn't have to
Mhm,
put in 80 hours per week, or else you maybe built the wrong system. Like maybe you've hired the wrong people, or there's like you're not delegating work properly. Like I see it as like,
yeah.
my calendar, if I have like limited calls in a week and if I have more free time, I actually see that as a massive win, because for me, it allows me to obviously go and eat properly, work out, sleep on time, spend time with family and friends. But more importantly, it also leaves
Mhm,
time for creative thinking where I can do my heads down work. I can write, I can think. That's the type of stuff that I wasn't able to do maybe 2 years ago because I had to call,
mhm,
call, 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 call. And then in the evening, that's when I had to do the heads down work and stay up
mhm,
until midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever. So audit your calendar, but don't be proud of
mhm.
having like 18 meetings in one day. It's not something to necessarily be proud of. Mhm.
What is like one thing that when you look back at your initial journey, you would like to have done differently?
Um, I think fire people quicker, maybe. Like there were definitely times where we had to let go of people, and I think early on I just didn't have the stomach
Mhm,
to let go of people quick enough. And there were
yeah.
definitely some people that I think were toxic to our team that changed our company culture early on, that were kind of steering the company in the wrong direction. And I hope
Mhm,
that maybe I went back and just let go of them quicker. It probably allowed us to adjust the company quicker. It allowed us to probably hire the
yeah.
right people quicker. To be fair though, the reason I don't regret it that much is because we ended up in a great place. So I think even
Mhm,
having those people there was a nice example for me to know like what was I lacking on as a manager, but more importantly,
yeah.
it was a nice thing for the other people in our team to see like, okay, this is an example of someone we don't want to be like. And so yeah, I think that's probably the only thing that kind of comes to mind right away.
Okay, and were you aware that those people didn't belong there in a
Oh
way,
yeah,
or were you like,
yeah,
okay, you
yeah,
were like, okay, this person doesn't belong here, but let's not fire them right away.
yeah. Let's give them a second
Was
chance, and then after the second chance, oh
okay.
no, let's give them a third
Let's say
chance,
the
right? Like
10th
in my
chance. And
exactly in my head, I'm like always like an optimist, and I still am by the way an optimist. But I mean to be fair, in a business again, like if there's someone else knocking on the door wanting that opportunity, you need to make quick decisions. It doesn't mean, by the way, I don't give people chances. Like if I genuinely feel like their intention is good, and if I feel like okay, their vibe is great, they really want to be here, they see surf as their life's work, which is what I really want from employees, then I'm definitely happy to give a second, even third chance. But if this is someone, by the way, who like a, I don't know if they're going to be here long in the long run. Two, I don't really like them that much in terms of how they work or how they speak to other people. I mean, I just shouldn't be giving them that many chances, and that's something again I wish I realized earlier.
and very important question: do you think you're successful? Do you feel like, am I successful?
Yeah, I
Do I
think
have enough? Am I enough?
yeah, no, 100% I do. I think it's especially
Mhm,
this more than any year because I feel like kind of in the last 3 months, since December 17th in particular,
mhm,
I've done a really good job now balancing my life way better than I've ever done before. So, though like obviously the accomplishments and the work experience and the network and all of that are fantastic.
mhm,
Those are very important pieces of my life that I've spent a lot of time building. I genuinely feel successful now because I have surf, I have my health as my top
yeah,
two priorities. And it's not like surf and then health, right? It's like they're up there
mhm,
together on the same line. And so I feel very successful because I genuinely feel like my life is well balanced. There's no week where I'm
mhm.
feeling overwhelmed. There's no week where I'm like, holy crap, like things are all over the place. My mind is cluttered. I just genuinely feel like I'm in a good space mentally and physically, which again makes me feel very successful on anything I do.
The way you would define success is this balance of work and personal life, and just an
Yeah,
overall feeling of contentment, I'd say.
everyone has it, right? Like
Mhm,
I feel like we've all felt kind of these blips and moments of success in life. And I think a lot of people
mhm,
would argue that those moments of success didn't come from a big paycheck. Those moments of success came from a feeling of fulfillment whether it
Yeah.
was personally, whether it was professionally. You can feel success in so many different ways and across so many different areas. So for me, again, like I'm just trying to replicate that feeling by putting myself and my body and my mind in the best position to go and have that feeling again. And so
Mhm.
that's why I generally feel every single day when I go to bed, I'm like, that was a successful day. And the reason that was a successful day is because I ate on time, I worked
Yeah.
out, I had amazing meetings with my team. I got work that I needed to get done that was on my priority list done.
Mhm.
I wasn't feeling overwhelmed at any point in terms of having 7 or 8 calls. And I was also able to spend time with my close friends or family members, whether it's giving them a 30-minute phone call or going and meeting with them. That, in my opinion, when I go to bed, is a successful day. And I want to just continue to replicate it because if I do, it's only going to build into a much bigger success down the road.
I absolutely love that. It reminds me of that line where you go like super fast and then like it stagnates, or where you have like
Mm,
small steps
hmm.
and
Yep, yep,
and you
yep.
celebrate the small wins. So it really
Correct.
makes it sound like by celebrating
Absolutely.
every single day, then your life is just composed of days. And if every
Yep,
day is successful with ups
yep.
and downs, then you have a successful life.
And
Yeah.
then what is also really important, which I used to do quite a bit, is if you don't have that
Mhm.
successful day, if you go to bed feeling, oh my God, this was a really crappy day, meetings didn't work
Uh-huh.
out, I wasn't even able to go for my run, I didn't eat very well, I ate way too late, I just wasn't able to even call my mom or call my friends or do anything. If you have those days, which are, on an average, I might have those days, like, by the way, 4 or 5 times a month.
Yeah.
The key thing is not to beat yourself up for it, which is what I did
Mhm.
before. Is that I'd be really, really harsh on myself. I'd be like, you got to really figure this out. This is a massive problem. Turn on red alert. Let's go. But
Yeah.
for me now, it's just more of realizing some of those days will happen. Um, Go to bed, try to get a good night's sleep if you can, and just wake up and reset. So again, that's why one thing I actually do every single week on a Sunday is I actually send out a preview of the
Mhm.
upcoming week to our entire team. And in that preview at the very bottom, I write that every new week presents a new opportunity to push forward. And that's generally my mentality now. I don't see, like,
Mhm.
I love yearly goals, but I love monthly goals far more. They're far more attainable, they're far more achievable. I
Yeah.
know exactly what I need to get done by the end of March. And I see again every single week as a way to be able to push forward to that goal.
Lovely. You have probably read the 12 Weeks Year, the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why they tell every goal that you think you can attain in a year, you probably can attain in like 12 weeks. So just
I
make
believe it.
small things.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And I also believe that, human beings, especially operators, entrepreneurs, really, when you
Mhm.
think about it, there's really 3 to 4 big kind of spurts in the year. What I mean by that is like
Yeah.
there are going to be 3 to 4 big things that you can achieve in a year. And it's up to you now to go and figure out, okay, how do I manage my time and energy to really push
Mhm.
hard in specific times of the year? Because if you push hard the whole year, you're going to burn out. Right, like if you're
Yeah.
if you're going crazy, if you're locked in, if you're not talking to anyone else, if you're not pursuing your hobbies and doing things that generally make
Mhm.
you happy outside of work, you're going to eventually burn out. But there are going to be those key months, those key times during a year where you just need to double down and push super hard. And so for me, actually,
Mhm.
I'm coming up to one of those. March 14th is when we kind of kick off our next fundraise. And so I am kind of going now into this next spurt, if you will, where kind of for the next 1 to 2 months, I'm just going to
Mhm.
be entirely locked in on fundraising.
Okay. And is that like a fixed thing, or it depends on what the business requires as well?
Depends on what the business requires entirely, right? So like at the
Okay.
start of the year, we will have annual goals. We'll also have quarterly goals. And looking at
Mhm.
the quarterly goals, normally the quarterly goals, sorry, lead up to something, right? So they position us, especially Q1, Q2 tends to be a foundational part of the year, like set
Mhm.
something up that allows us to do something bigger later on. And so for Q1, we laid out a bunch of goals that unlocked our next fundraising round. And we hit
Yeah.
pretty much every single one of those goals actually quite early. We hit it kind of around mid-Feb of this year, which was nice. And that obviously now gives us time to go ahead, reset, take a break. Especially for me, I was able to go to Vancouver, and then I'm
Mhm.
now in Calgary, in my family home. Great time to reset, eat healthy, just chill a little bit before we go back into the chaos and madness that is fundraising and pushing really, really hard.
Completely understand. I'm happy that you can make that transition and actually just turn off for a bit. What would you say are
Yeah.
like your three best habits for to maintain mental health? and work-life balance and all of that?
Three best habits to maintain mental health. I mean, one, like walks. Walks are always great. I love walking. I love
Mhm.
running as well. I do run quite a bit on a treadmill now, and so I love just being able to get out if possible. Like if it's snowy
Mhm.
outside, then whatever, the treadmill works. But if possible, there's the sun out, just go out and go for a walk or a run, get some fresh air. Always helps. The
Mhm.
second thing, any big decisions, try to sleep on it. Especially both professionally and
Yep.
personally. If there's something big that you're thinking a lot about, like what way do I go, what decision do I make, if possible, and you don't need to get back to that person right away, take the day, because I just feel like some of those kind of best ideas come when you wake up the next morning and think about an
Yep.
idea or a problem with a clear head. And the final thing is just don't be afraid to ask for help. For me, like
Mhm.
whether it's doing therapy, whether it's telling my friends and family members, hey, I need a little bit of help on X topic or figuring out X,
Yep.
or it's going online, doing my own research, talking to other people that have gone through similar instances. I'm very
Mhm.
open just about kind of telling people if I need help, I need help. Like I'm not going to have an ego to it. I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't ever have a spot of weakness, because I just feel like, again, vulnerability, especially when you
Mhm.
show it to your team, your friends, your family members, it only brings you closer to people.
I love that. I think that that's really important, and it comes from a place of so much awareness, which you
Hmm.
for sure have a lot. So
Hmm.
it's super good. And I have one very last question for you. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? If a 10 years plan is
Yeah.
something that you have, maybe
I
not.
see myself as a 34-year-old person. Yeah. I I don't have kind of goals dictated
Uh-huh.
around age necessarily. I definitely
Mhm.
I want to see surf become a public company one day. So that's what we're pushing towards. We're trying to make surf the biggest thing possible. I want to see, we're right now at close to 75,000 people in 4 months that have signed up and are being rewarded for their data. Can that number become a million, 5 million, 10 million people over the next
Mhm.
few years? Secondly, I love the entertainment industry. I'd love to continue doing something there. I am an executive producer right now for two separate short films. And so whether
Mhm.
it's more production, whether it's more, kind of getting involved in the industry as a director, as a writer, I'd love to look into something like that. I think, again, for the latter, it would probably have to be post surf, because I just don't have the time right now to do anything but surf, really, other than maybe speak or once in a while do something like a podcast. And then the final goal, the long term goal for me still is politics. It's been like that since
Yep.
I was like 10, 11 years old. I want to run for office one day. I don't know when, I don't know what country, I don't know which party. um, but I have a hunch that'll probably be Canada, and I have a hunch that I'll probably do it around my mid 30s, late 30s. So let's see if it happens. Again, there's
Okay.
no, if I don't hit that goal, it's something that's going to make me feel very sad or disappointed. But those are kind of three things that I've put in my head as like, oh, these are things that are really exciting that might be coming up in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay. Like general thoughts here and there, and just building as you go. As you tend to like over analyze like your life on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, things just flow,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
yeah.
and I used to do that again, right? Like I used to be the type of person like, oh, by the age of 25, I want to do this. By the age of
Uh-huh.
30, I want to do this. By the age of 35, I want to do this. And it's like, it just isn't good, because like most of the
Hmm.
time you might hit some parts of what you wanted to do, but you definitely won't hit
Hmm.
all of it. And that'll just again make you feel like I'm behind. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And that's not a good
Yeah.
feeling to have at all. So I think, again, even with social media, things compound because you look at other people maybe doing something you want to do, and that just makes you even feel worse. So just
Mm.
don't, like, have expectations for yourself, have goals for yourself, obviously, but don't tie them to an age. Tie them more, I think, to like
Yeah.
a milestone. For me, it's like if I sell surf, if surf goes public one day,
Yeah.
then I get to unlock X, and that's my milestone now. It's not contingent on an age, it's contingent on a milestone, and that's why I'm pushing so hard
Mm.
towards trying to make it the biggest it can be.
Super, super inspiring. Actually, maybe I have one last question after the last question,
Hmm.
and then wrap it up.
Yeah.
What is one thing you'd like every young person to know?
The last thing definitely is around networking. I think networking is
Hmm.
something that every young person should do, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or not. If you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, if you're a lawyer,
Hmm.
your network, again, in my opinion, genuinely is your net worth. So try as much as possible to reach out to people, especially in your college years. I think when you're in
Yeah.
college, a lot of people are actually willing to talk to you because you're this inquisitive young person trying to figure out the world. And a lot of like older entrepreneurs, more successful people in whatever industry are always looking to pass on their wisdom to the next generation. So kind of use your young year age, use your college kind of background to go and talk to people. And again, in my opinion, don't ask for coffee. It tends to be like the most overused line is, can I take 10 to 15 minutes of your time to
Uh-huh.
get you coffee and pick your mind? And I hate when people say that to me because everyone says it and it's only
Yeah.
taking time away from me. Versus what I generally
Yeah.
do like is when people go and interview in the individual. So if you have a podcast, which you can, by the way, create very easily in today's world, if you want to
Mhm.
write articles on Medium or write articles on LinkedIn about people, go for it. But reach out saying, hey, I love your story. I'd love to talk to you for 10 to 15 minutes and write about your story or interview you and share a podcast, and then build a
Mhm.
relationship with that individual from there, because that's a relationship that's built on you giving value to that person right away, that's simply taking their time and not giving them anything back. So
Yeah.
that would be my biggest advice, is just focus on your network, be crafty of how you reach out to people, but try as much as possible to provide value to people around you, because again, it will find a way to circle back and come back to you eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this quote that says, "You don't know what you want what you know."
Yeah,
So it's like we limit ourselves, and the more people you know, the more opportunities that also come organically without
yeah,
you even asking for them. So
absolutely.
that's really, really important. Swish, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story and all of your tips. They are very, very useful and very inspiring. So yeah, continue doing an amazing job, everything you're doing, and keeping your mental health and inspiring so many people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.